Hello, everybody. I am Mrs. Poppet, and this is my place. It's so nice to see you here again for another story time, for I have picked out a classic one that we all love. If you've heard it, it's called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And if you haven't, I think you're going to like it very much. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time in the middle of winter, when flakes of snow were falling like feathers from the sky, a queen sat at a window sewing. The frame of the window was made of black ebony, and while she was sewing she pricked her finger with a needle, and 3 drops of red blood fell on the white snow. She thought to herself, "How I would love to have a child as white as snow, and as red as blood, and as black as this window frame." Soon after, she had a little daughter whose skin was white as snow, lips red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. The baby girl was called Snow White. But the queen died, and after a year passed, the king married another wife. She was a beautiful woman, but proud and haughty, and she could not bear to be less beautiful than anybody else. She had a wonderful looking glass, and when she stood in front of it and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" the looking glass would answer, "You, queen, are the fairest of all." Then she was satisfied, for she knew the looking glass always spoke the truth. But Snow White was growing up and becoming even more beautiful. By the time she was 14 years old, she was as beautiful as the day, and more beautiful than the queen herself. So when the queen asked her looking glass, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" it answered, "Lady Queen, you are fair and bright, but more fair still is young Snow White." The queen was shocked and turned yellow and green with envy. From that hour, whenever she looked at Snow White, her heart heaved in her chest because she hated the girl so much. The envy and pride grew in her heart like a weed, and she had no peace day or night. She called a huntsman and said, "Take the child into the forest. I will no longer have her in my sight. Kill her, and bring me back her lung and liver as proof." The huntsman took Snow White away, but when he had drawn his knife, she began to weep and said, "Dear huntsman, do not take my life. I will run away into the wild forest and never come home again." She was so beautiful, the huntsman took pity on her and said, "Run away then, you poor girl. The wild beasts will soon have devoured you," he thought sadly. He killed a young boar, cut out its lung and liver to take to the queen. The poor child was all alone in the great forest and terrified. She began to run. She ran over sharp stones, through thorns, and the wild beasts ran right past her, but they did her no harm. She ran as far as her feet would go. Then she saw a little cottage and went in to rest. Everything in the little cottage was small, but neat and clean. There was a table with a white cloth, 7 little plates, and 7 little mugs. Against the wall stood 7 little beds side by side. Snow White was so hungry and thirsty that she ate some vegetables and bread from each plate and drank a drop of wine out of each mug, for she did not wish to take everything from one person. Then, as she was so tired, she laid down on one of the little beds and fell asleep. When it was dark, the owners of the cottage came back. They were 7 dwarfs, who dug for precious metals in the mountains. They lit their 7 candles and saw that someone had been there, eating from their plates and drinking from their mugs. Who could it be? Then the 7th dwarf looked at his bed and saw Snow White lying there. They all cried out with astonishment and brought their 7 little candles, so light fell on her face. "Oh, heavens! Oh, heavens!" they cried. "What a lovely girl!" And they did not wake her, but let her sleep on the bed. When it was morning, Snow White woke up and was frightened when she saw the 7 dwarfs. But they were friendly and asked her what her name was. "My name is Snow White," she answered. "How have you come to our house?" asked the dwarfs. She told them that her stepmother had wished to have her killed, but that the huntsman had spared her life, and she'd run for the whole day until at last she found their cottage. The dwarfs said, "If you will take care of our house, cook, make the beds, wash, sew, and knit, if you will keep everything neat and clean, you can stay with us and you shall want for nothing." "Yes," said Snow White, "with all my heart." And she stayed with them. During the day they went to the mountains looking for copper and gold, and she kept the house in order and made supper. Snow White was alone the whole day, so the good dwarfs warned her, "Beware of your stepmother. She will soon know that you are here. Be sure to let no one come in." The queen believed that Snow White was dead, so she thought she must again be the most beautiful of all. She went to her looking glass and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all?" The looking glass answered, "O Queen, you are the fairest of all I see, but over the hills where the 7 dwarfs dwell, Snow White is still alive and well, and none is so fair as she." The wicked queen was astounded, for she knew that the looking glass never lied, so the huntsman must have betrayed her, and Snow White must still be alive. Envy let her have no rest. She thought of nothing but how she might kill her stepdaughter. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and painted her face so that no one recognized her. She went over the mountain to the 7 dwarfs' cottage and knocked at the door. "Pretty things to sell, very cheap, very cheap." Snow White looked out the window and answered, "Good day, my good woman. What have you to sell?" "Pretty things," said the disguised queen, "ribbons and laces of all colors." Snow White unbolted the door and bought a pretty lace. "What a mess you look," said the old woman. "Come, I will lace your corset properly." Snow White had no suspicions and stood still while her new lace was threaded. But the old woman tightened the lace so quickly, and Snow White lost her breath and fell down as if dead. "Now I am the fairest, most beautiful," said the queen to herself, and she ran away. In the evening the 7 dwarfs came home and were shocked when they saw their dear Snow White lying on the ground. They lifted her up and saw the tight laces and cut them. She began to breathe again, a little, and after a while she came to life again. When the dwarfs heard what happened, they said, "That old peddler woman was none other than the wicked queen. Don't let anyone in when you are not with us." When she reached home, the queen went to her looking glass and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all?" And it answered as before, "O Queen, you are the fairest of all I see, but over the hills where the 7 dwarfs dwell, Snow White is still alive and well, and none is so fair as she." When she heard that, the queen's blood rushed to her heart with fear and anger. She saw plainly that Snow White was still alive. She could not rest until she thought of a more deadly plan. She made a poisonous hair comb. Then she disguised herself again as a different old woman, and she went over the mountains to the 7 dwarfs' cottage, knocked at the door, and cried, "Good things to sell, cheap, cheap." Snow White looked out and said, "Go away. I cannot let anyone come in." "Well, you can have a look," said the old woman, and held out the poisonous comb. Snow White thought the comb was so pretty she was quite distracted by it and opened the door. She bought the comb, and the old woman said, "I will put it in your hair for you." Snow White let the old woman do as she pleased, but as soon as the comb touched her, the poison took effect, and she fell down senseless. "You paragon of beauty," said the wicked woman, "you are finished now." And she went away. Fortunately, it was almost evening, and the 7 dwarfs came home. When they saw Snow White lying on the ground as if dead, they once suspected the stepmother. They looked for what might hurt her and found the poisoned comb. When they took it out of her hair, Snow White came to herself and told them what had happened, and they warned her once more to keep the door closed. The queen went home and, looking in her looking glass, said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all?" And it answered as before, "O Queen, you are the fairest of all I see, but over the hills where the 7 dwarfs dwell, Snow White is still alive and well, and none is so fair as she." When she heard this, the wicked woman shook with rage. "Snow White will die," she cried, "even if it costs me my life." In a lonely room, she made a poisonous apple. On the outside it looked delicious, shiny and white, with a red cheek. Eating a piece of it meant certain death. She painted her face and dressed herself like a farmer's wife, and then she knocked at the dwarf's door. Snow White put her head out the window and said, "I'm sorry, I cannot let anyone in. The 7 dwarfs have forbidden me." "It doesn't matter. I will soon sell my bag of beautiful apples to others," said the old woman. "Here, I will give you one." "No," said Snow White, "I dare not take anything." "Are you afraid of poison?" asked the old woman. "Look, I will cut the apple in 2. You eat the red cheek, and I will eat the white." The apple was made so deviously that only the red cheek was poisoned. Snow White longed for the delicious-looking fruit, and when she saw the woman ate part of it, she could resist no longer. She stretched out her hand and took the poisoned red piece. As soon as she bit into it, she fell down dead. Then the queen looked at her with a dreadful face and said, "White as snow, red as blood, black as ebony. This time the dwarfs cannot wake you up again." And when at home, she asked her looking glass, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all?" It answered at last, "O Queen, in this land you are the fairest of all." Then her envious heart had rest, so far as an envious heart can have rest. When the dwarfs came home that evening, they found Snow White lying on the floor, dead. They looked for anything poisonous, unlaced her, washed her, but it was all of no use. The poor girl remained dead. They laid her in a glass coffin, and all 7 of them sat around it and wept for her for 3 days. They put the coffin out upon the mountain, and one of them always stayed by it and watched it. Birds came too and wept for Snow White, first an owl, then a raven, and last a dove. Snow White lay a long, long time in the coffin, and she did not change. She looked as if she were in a deep sleep, for her skin was still as white as snow, and her lips red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. It happened one day that a king's son came to the mountain and saw the coffin and the beautiful Snow White inside. He said to the dwarfs, "Let me have the coffin. I will give you whatever you want for it." But the dwarfs answered, "We will not part with it for all the gold in the world." Then he said, "Let me have it as a gift, for I cannot live without seeing Snow White. I will honor and prize her as my dearest possession." Then the good dwarfs trusted him and took pity on him and gave him the coffin. The king's son had it carried away by his servants, but as they went, they stumbled over a tree stump and jolted the coffin. The poisonous piece of apple flew out of Snow White's throat. She opened her eyes, lifted up the lid of the coffin, sat up, and was alive once more. "Oh, heavens, where am I?" she cried. The king's son, full of joy, said, "You are with me." And he told her what happened. He said, "I love you more than everything in the world. Come and marry me." Snow White said yes, and went with him, and their wedding was held with great show and splendor. But Snow White's wicked stepmother was invited to the feast. When she dressed herself in beautiful clothes, she went to the looking glass and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of all?" The glass answered, "O Queen, of here the fairest you are, but young yonder Queen Fair is fairer by far." Then the wicked queen uttered a curse, and was so utterly wretched she didn't know what to do. At first she would not go to the wedding at all, but then she realized she had to see the young queen. When she went in, she recognized Snow White and stood still with rage and fear. But iron slippers had already been placed on the fire. They were brought in with tongs and set before her. Then she was forced to put on the red-hot shoes and dance until she dropped down dead. Such an adventure, isn't it? Poor Snow White went through so much, but because she was good of heart, she was okay. And because the queen was not good of heart, she was not. So I guess we all should just be good, because then we'll be okay too. I hope you liked this story. I liked it very much. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.